Hey everyone, Miss GoElectric here. I'm at the 2025 EV Charging Summit and Expo. And on this episode of In Charge, I'm really excited to be joined by John, who is actually in charge of sales. You're the Vice President of Sales for North America for ABB eMobility. And basically that means that you're in charge of public and fleet charging, correct?
Yep, that's right.
Well, thanks for joining us, John.
Thank you for having me.
I want to kind of give some insight to people about ABB because maybe it's not a household name for most people. I mean, I know it and you know it, but you are actually one of the world's largest charging infrastructure companies. And I've published several videos about what you guys do and charging infrastructure in general. But for viewers that might not have seen those videos already, can you kind of give a overview, a quick summary of how ABB is involved with deploying EV charging?
So ABB eMobility is it actually used to be a part of ABB Inc. So I think a lot of people are familiar with that. The names, they share at least those three letters. And we started back in 2012. We deployed the very first DC fast charger. It was a 50 kilowatt charger. And since then, to date, we've deployed well over 50,000 DC fast chargers globally. So we are our own entity now. We're our own legal setup where we operate independently as our own standalone company. And really the intention there was for us to be able to match the market speed and to be able to innovate very quickly and meet the needs of the market.
Well, you touched on DC fast charging, and I know that when we talk about charging, it's kind of a holistic approach. We need inexpensive and reliable charging regardless, but we also need many levels of charging, whether it's DC fast charging or whether it is level 2 charging. Now, that comes into play, especially in your role when you're dealing with public and fleet side of the business. So there's government, there's commercial fleets, there are urban situations where we need to tap a little bit more into those lower speeds. But first off, I want to start talking about DC fast charging. And specifically, one thing that I have come across is when I'm on my road trips, I've traveled and stopped at public DC fast chargers that have been put up and installed through the NEVI program. And with the NEVI program, what I've noticed is as a driver, I pull up and sometimes the chargers are maybe 30% more expensive than maybe one that's across the street that's on the same utility. So in this regard, you have really good insight on the economics of it, of the math behind what goes into putting in these DC fast chargers. So can you touch on a little bit more about the affordability and what is the secret to getting more affordable EV chargers in the ground?
Great. We could go so many directions with that.
Let's do it.
We covered a lot of things. So I'll start with a little bit of like a reverse chronological order here. I think the secret to affordable EV charging is it really just comes back to basic economics. So when you have more available charging, there's going to be more consumers out there on the street that feel comfortable driving EVs and switching over to EVs. So adoption picks up, and as adoption picks up, you'll find that there's more utilization. As utilization increases, these charge point operators, regardless of how they got their project funded, so whether that was government funded or it was through the private sector, they will be able to be more profitable. As they're more profitable, there'll be more CPOs that jump into the space. And what happens is now you start to have a little bit more supply, right? So as supply increases on the charging side, it's going to start pushing that pricing pressure down. And so what you'll see is instead of being able to, on one side of the street, it's 30 cents more, and on one side it's cheaper, you're going to see that there's going to be more competition. There are going to be folks that are no different than sort of the gas pump experience that you're seeing out there, where it's much more heavily competitive. And you're having folks that are trying to do loyalty programs and doing all these other stuff, but price is going to be one of those things that consumers are going to be sensitive about. So this is an area that I think can be solved with more charging. As it becomes more ubiquitous, it's gonna drive the right pricing pressures down and create good unit economics still for the operator for themselves.
Of course, when we think of EVs, a lot of times people think of Tesla because they have good brand awareness and whatnot, but they also have a charging network that has pretty high visibility. We hear a lot about them, especially because their network in particular, they save time and money by prefabricating their charging equipment. And so with that approach, can you talk a little bit more about the ways that you guys are starting to drive the price down and what other methods are you taking into place in order to make it a quicker install for your customers?
Yeah, I actually think some of what's made them successful has been, I think, a lot about more about the user experience. There's areas around like construction and design, but these aren't necessarily the places where I think that operators are really able to capture the most value and sort of decrease their cost. I think that it really comes in the total cost of operations. And this is where I think that they've done a good job both balancing cost of operations, but also driving utilization. And frankly, the conversation's got to pivot from a cost-based conversation to more of a how do we make sure that it's profitable type of conversation. And something they've done is super well is they basically built a car and an infrastructure around an app. I mean, frankly, that's sort of the way that it feels to the driver. So what we've done as an organization, as ABB eMobility, is we've taken that same approach. We've said, you know what, user experience is everything. So we've said that, hey, whether you're going to, you get out of your car and you're going to use the app, use a credit card reader, you're going to use the on-screen display. We think that we've solved that with our new generation of chargers in a way that's very unique to the industry. And what that does is it increases user experience. Folks are going to be more comfortable with that stuff. And then again, it comes right back to that. I think the most important part is the operator profitable? Do they have a standalone business that's able to self-sustain itself?
I feel like that's a conversation we could continue to have over and over for the next few years,
Yeah.
because it's just a conversation we've seen a lot of EV charging companies have.
Yeah.
Now, I want to kind of touch on a little bit about the level 2 charging aspect of this, because I'm a big advocate of drawing this importance to dwell time, and the fact that maybe DC fast charging might not be the answer because you need to match your activity time with the time or power amount of charging to really get the most out of the experience. Now, there are some times where I just want to go to a shopping mall and I want to plug in, and it's going to take me like 3 hours to charge instead of, if I'm doing a good shopping haul, or instead of having to stop at a DC fast charger where maybe I know I'm going to spend that time, and then I have to kind of switch gears and go unplug my car so I don't get idle fees or anything like that. I've heard you say that destination retail is on the next frontier of charging. So can you kind of give me some more information about the challenges and the opportunities available in that space and what you've seen so far?
Yeah, I think, yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about the opportunity, but just on the anecdote, right? I think that if you're using a level 2 charger in the public setting, it's going to take more than 3 hours. I mean, it's going to take, especially if you're trying to get a useful amount of energy. I think a lot of folks, when they go up to a charger, they would like to have as much energy delivered to their vehicle as required so that they can go on about their week, not their day. They don't want to have to do this every time that they stop somewhere. So I think matching dwell time is super important, but really, frankly, I think our position is level 2 doesn't necessarily have a home in the public sphere. It's more so matching a little bit of a lower power DC to the dwell time that you might have. So let's take like the shopping mall or the gym or the grocery store, wherever you may be. Let's shorten that from 3 hours to an hour, right? How much can we maximize a charge session in that 1 hour? And is that enough for somebody to come in and say, hey, I'm just doing my regular life, but I'm getting enough energy delivered that I might not have to worry about it for the next several days. This is especially helpful for folks who might live in a multi-dwelling building or an area that maybe doesn't have level 2 charging, or maybe their house that doesn't have enough power to be able to do that.
So you think maybe what's kind of the sweet spot as far as speeds go? Like in that case, 50 kilowatts or so?
Yeah, like 50 kilowatts, right? I think it's the sweet spot. So what I think the next challenge, right? Sort of the second part of that original question is what challenge do we need to overcome? Well, what we really need to overcome is showing that for the real estate owners who have these pockets of real estate, that this can turn into an asset that really drives more value. Not only can you have an amenity that helps folks stay in store or bring more shoppers to your store, but you're able to add a value as an operator at that point, that it's a separate business that can be had from having that charging infrastructure on that side. And you don't necessarily need the fastest. What you need is something that's available, again, to match that dwell time, and then you can have a whole another value stream added to your business. So once the big real estate folks that are out there start to pick up and see that value, I think it's really going to take off, and DC fast charging will then become more ubiquitous. And again, this is really the key to EV adoption for those consumers who are on the edge about going into the EV space.
And speaking of that, is getting more people into EVs and utilizing more of the charging equipment. there are a lot of news outlets that have been out there who have, sensationalized some of the policy decisions and changes in sales trends and things like that, which ultimately that can end up misleading the public about what the reality is and what the trajectory is of electric transportation. So in your role, you see bids, you see contracts, you see all different sides of these projects and the capital that's invested in it from a really wide angle. So what can you tell me about the scale of the private investment side of the business versus what you're seeing on the government side of the investment and the inertia for the infrastructure to ultimately roll out?
You're right. Some of the news, it does sensationalize whether something's going positive or it's going negative. And either way, I think sometimes there's a story that's being attempted to be sold to the consumers. The reality is that EV makes sense. It makes sense from an economic perspective, and it certainly makes sense from a reliability and a maintenance perspective, especially for a lot of drivers. So there is a lot of private investment that's going into this space. So regardless of how it's being funded, I think it has to go back to, does this make sense for the operator? And those unit economics are so important. So is the utilization there? Did they get the right hardware? Do they have the right asset management set up? Have they figured out the right price point for the market? Is the utility working with them? Once all that comes together, what operators are finding is that it is profitable. In fact, the more chargers you have out there, the better that you're doing. And it's really going to come back to that key growth point, which is utilization.
And from the fleet side of things, are you seeing that more and more businesses are like, yeah, this obviously makes sense, or are there things that are still holding them back?
On the fleet side, it's very clear on the light duty. So light duty vans and middle mile vehicles, things like that. It makes sense right now. So we are seeing that consistent investment, regardless of what programs are available. I think that there's still more work to be done on the heavy duty side. I think there's more work to be done on the megawatt side of things, but certainly on the light duty side, that it's clear for them that they're saving money on maintenance and it's saving them money on energy use.
I know that there are becoming options that are getting closer to the marketplace that are providing more range for people to actually decide to go in that route with a Class 8, Class 7 type vehicle. So the infrastructure is an important key ingredient to that to also make it succeed.
I heard some folks speaking this morning, and it's consistent that the inhibitor or the major complaint for adoption is reliable infrastructure, right? So regardless of, again, if you're public or fleet, that's why it's so important for leaders like us, these OEMs, to really fix those friction points in the market. We think we've done a good job of doing that. We have a wide breadth of things, whether it's megawatt or it's the 400 kW or it's the 50 kW. We try to meet what the market needs for that particular segment.
If people are interested in learning more about what you guys offer at ABB eMobility, how can they get a hold of you and what the team is doing so that they can learn more?
Great. Yeah, we would love to plug. So we've got a great website. So ABB eMobility, you can start there. If folks are trying to get in from the business to business side and you're saying, hey, we'd love to figure out how to be an infrastructure partner, we have a number of ways of getting through that, including an email inquiry thing on the website. And then, of course, there's me, John Stahlbusch, can reach out directly on LinkedIn. I'm happy to do that. And if you're just a driver, a consumer, you're trying to figure out, hey, what are the leaders in the space doing to fix these problems? Is the future getting better? I'd really encourage them to go check out our website, check out our LinkedIn feeds, check out our social media, and you'll be able to see some of these innovative things that we're bringing that are very consumer focused and really geared towards making the passenger vehicle driver feel comfortable with EV charging.
Well, thank you for spending time with us today, John. It was great to talk to you.
Great to talk with you as well.
And thank you all for watching this latest episode of In Charge. And until next time, drive, fly, ride. Go electric.
Go electric.